Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we're travelling back in time to the deep shadowed forests of the 18th century France, to a place where a very real monster once roamed. Forget the vampires and werewolves of your favourite series. This story is far more unsettling because it's true. You're about to step into the life of a young man caught in the middle of a terror that will grip a nation, and I promise you, by the end of this, you'll be double-checking your windows before you try to sleep. You probably won't survive this, but at least you'll have a great story to tell. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a young man named Jean, and you live in the small, unassuming village of Langogne, tucked away in the rugged, forested hills of the Gévaudan region. The year is 1764, and life here is a quiet, predictable rhythm of sunrises and sunsets. The air smells of damp earth and pine, and the days are spent tending to flocks or working the fields. Today, however, is different. A frantic energy buzzes through the village, a low hum of fear and whispered rumours. You hear the first terrifying news from the shepherds who've just returned from the pastures. They speak of a young woman, a girl named Jeanne Boulet, from a neighbouring hamlet. She was killed, not by a bear or a wild boar, but by something else. They say her body was found in the woods, with a massive gaping wound in her neck. Her clothes were torn to shreds, and the scene looked less like a wild animal's kill and more like a deliberate act of savage violence. It's the kind of story that sends a shiver down your spine, even on a warm day. You remember Jeanne, a cheerful girl with a bright smile. The thought of her body, mauled and discarded, fills you with a cold dread. The shepherds talk about the creature they think did it. A beast of enormous size with reddish-brown fur, a broad chest and a snout like a wolf, but teeth that seemed too large, too sharp. Its eyes, they say, were unnervingly intelligent, a detail that chills you to the bone. You've heard tales of wolves, of course, but the description sounds nothing like the lean, wary wolves that occasionally pass through your lands. This creature sounds like a nightmare given flesh, and you can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning. As the sun sets, the villagers lock their doors and bring their livestock inside, a practice they've never needed before. The usual evening chatter has been replaced by a tense, nervous silence. You find yourself staring out of your small window into the encroaching darkness, listening for any sound that doesn't belong. The wind rustling the leaves sounds like footsteps, and the distant hoot of an owl seems to hold a mournful warning. The tranquility of your world has been shattered. The monster that killed Jeanne is out there, lurking in the very same woods where you once played as a child. The fear, once a distant rumour, becomes a very personal thing just a few weeks later. You're with a group of other young men, herding cattle just a few miles from your village. The air is crisp and clear, and the sun is high. You're just talking, a bit of light-hearted banter when you hear it. A shriek, followed by the deep, guttural growl of a predator. You all freeze, your eyes darting toward the tree line. The sound came from the direction of a small clearing where a young shepherdess named Marie-Jeanne Vallée was watching her flock. Without thinking, you and the others grab your staves and start running. You burst into the clearing, and what you see is a scene of pure horror. The beast, a massive, muscular creature, is standing over Marie-Jeanne. Its head is lowered, its powerful jaws gripping her arm. Its coat is a strange reddish-brown, and its movements are unnervingly fast. It looks almost like a wolf, but it's far too large, and its movements are too purposeful, too deliberate. The way it holds her is not the way a wolf would. It's almost confident. The sight of the beast and its victim electrifies your fear into a desperate kind of courage. You and the others yell and beat your staves against the ground, trying to scare it off. It turns its head toward you, and you get a clear look at its eyes. They're not the wild animal eyes you'd expect. They hold a terrifying glint of something almost intelligent, a cold indifference that sends a second wave of fear through you. For a moment it just stares, as if weighing its options. And then, with a snarl, it releases Marie-Jeanne's arm, turns, and vanishes into the woods as quickly as it appeared. You rush to Marie-Jeanne. She's alive, but her arm is mangled, a grotesque mess of torn flesh and bone. Her shock and terror are palpable, her wide eyes staring blankly into the forest where the creature disappeared. You and the others manage to help her back to the village, but the sight of her injuries and her story only serves to deepen the fear. The fact that the beast let her go is as terrifying as the attack itself. It's not just killing out of hunger, it seems to be killing for sport, for the sheer joy of the hunt. This detail, that the beast seemed to be toying with its victims, is a mainstream historical fact that shocked the entire country. The attacks were often described not as quick, fatal strikes, but as drawn-out, brutal encounters. One minute you're tending your flock, the next you're a part of a predator's grisly game. The quirky or fringe tidbit is that people in the area began to believe the beast was a form of divine punishment, sent to cleanse the land of sinners. This idea took root, and soon, local priests were holding special sermons, preaching about the need for repentance to stop the attacks. Historians still argue whether the creature was truly supernatural, or if the fear and terror of the moment simply made people's imaginations run wild. But for you, standing in the village square as the injured girl is carried away, there's nothing supernatural about the horror. The beast, whatever it is real. It's out there, and it's coming back. You look out toward the woods, the place you've always called home, and now, for the first time in your life, you feel like a stranger in your own land. The peace is gone, and the hunt has just begun. The quiet desperation of Langogne is a feeling that begins to spread like a fever. For the next few months, the monster becomes the only topic of conversation, and the attacks, at first, a localized tragedy, start happening in other villages, farther afield. You hear the news from merchants and travellers passing through, each story more horrifying than the last. A boy in the village of Mazirac, a woman in Saint-Étienne de Lucdarez. The beast seems to be everywhere at once, a phantom of the forest. The sheer number of victims, especially women and children working alone in the fields, is staggering. The death toll mounts, and with each new victim, the fear hardens into something more palpable, something that tastes like metal on your tongue. You spend your days with the other young men, taking your turn, standing guard over the livestock, your hand never far from your hunting knife. The forests that were once a source of firewood and wild berries are now places of pure terror. You won't even cross the road to your neighbour's house after sundown without a lantern and a pitchfork. The usual sounds of the countryside, the bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle, are now background noise to a constant low-level anxiety. Every rustle in the bushes, every snapped twig makes you jump. The beast has stolen more than just lives. It has stolen your sense of security, the very comfort of home. The stories of the monster grow more and more fantastic. Some say it's a werewolf, a man cursed to take on a monstrous form. They say its eyes glow in the dark and its fur is as hard as metal. Others insist it's a wolf-hyena cross, a monstrous creature born of some dark experiment. You hear one merchant, his face pale with fear, whispering about a sorcerer who created the beast to terrorize the land in a fit of pique. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that a local priest, convinced the beast was a demon, began performing exorcisms in the fields where the attacks had taken place, sprinkling holy water and chanting prayers to ward off the evil. It provided a small comfort to the villagers, a sense that they were fighting back with spiritual if not physical weapons. The wild theories are a symptom of a deeper malaise. The fact is, no one knows what this thing is, and that uncertainty is the most potent weapon it possesses. People begin to turn on each other. Neighbours eye each other with suspicion, wondering if one of them is secretly a werewolf or a sorcerer or an accomplice to this hellish creature. The social fabric of your community, once so tightly woven, begins to fray at the edges. This general panic is a mainstream historical fact. The attacks didn't just create a hunting party. They incited widespread terror that affected the entire region. The king, Louis V, was initially dismissive of the reports, believing them to be exaggerated tales from the provinces. The royal court was focused on its own intricate social dances and political manoeuvring, and a few dead peasants in some backwater region were considered a minor inconvenience at best. But the news was starting to reach Paris. Reports from local officials detailed the gruesome nature of the killings and the sheer number of victims. The Royal Academy of Sciences even began to receive letters from local doctors and naturalists trying to classify the beast. As the body count climbs and the terror becomes a national sensation, the king finally takes notice. He realizes that this isn't just a local problem anymore, it's a political embarrassment. How can he be the all-powerful ruler of France if he can't even protect his own people from a single wild animal? So, he issues a formal royal decree. He offers a reward of 6,000 livres, a massive sum more than a common labourer could make in a decade, to anyone who can kill the beast. But even a king's proclamation can't stop the attacks. The beast seems to revel in the challenge. It's as if it knows it has the full attention of the country now. It seems to get bolder, attacking people in broad daylight, sometimes with witnesses present. The reward galvanizes the region. Hunters, mercenaries and adventurers from all over France begin to arrive in Gévaudan. They come for the money but also for the glory. You see them marching through the village in their fancy clothes and carrying expensive firearms, so different from the rusty old muskets and homemade traps you and your neighbours use. You and the others look at them with a mixture of hope and scepticism. They're professionals, but this isn't a normal hunt. This creature is different. It's smarter. It seems to know when to strike and how to disappear without a trace. Historians still argue whether the royal reward was a sign of genuine concern from the king, or just a calculated political move to quell the growing unrest and embarrassment. But for you, watching the parade of hopeful hunters march past, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the death count has now reached into the dozens, and the beast is still out there. You remember Marie-Jeanne, and the vacant look in her eyes as she was carried away. The sight of her mangled arm a constant reminder of the monster's terrible power. The forests are silent now, devoid of the cheerful songs of shepherds and the playful calls of children. The silence itself is a kind of noise, a constant ringing in your ears that says, danger. Every sunset is a small, quiet dread. You and your family take your nightly watch, a rifle propped by the fire, your eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. The life you knew is gone, replaced by this grim new reality. The Gévaudan is no longer a peaceful home, it's a hunting ground, and you're all just the prey. And you know, deep in your bones, that this wave of new, inexperienced hunters will not be enough. The beast is too cunning. You feel a terrible sense of foreboding, a certainty that the royal intervention, for all its pomp and circumstance, is doomed to fail. The royal decree arrives not as a saviour, but as a spectacle. You stand with the other villagers, watching as Captain Duhamel, a celebrated military man with a crisp uniform and a stern face, rides into your village. He's here by the king's order, tasked with leading the hunt. He sets up camp in a field on the edge of town, and soon a steady stream of soldiers and professional hunters joins him. They arrive with gleaming rifles and hunting dogs, a stark contrast to the rusty tools and wary mutts of the local farmers. The air thrums with a new kind of energy, a mixture of official pomp and desperate hope. For the first time since the terror began, you feel a flicker of something resembling optimism. The king has sent his best. Surely a trained military mind and dozens of soldiers can corner and kill this thing. Captain Duhamel, a man of action and discipline, dismisses the local rumours of demons and sorcerers. He treats this as a military campaign, a simple matter of strategy and superior firepower. He organises massive search parties, fanning out across the forests in coordinated lines, trying to flush the beast out of its hiding spots. You and the other local men are enlisted to help, and you find yourself trudging through the familiar woods, but this time with dozens of armed men around you. The sound of their footsteps and the rustle of their uniforms is a stark contrast to the terrifying silence you'd become accustomed to. But the beast, as you knew it would, proves to be a far more elusive and intelligent opponent than Duhamel anticipated. It seems to anticipate the hunts. When the soldiers are sweeping one valley, it attacks a village on the other side of the mountain. It moves with a cunning that defies military tactics. Duhamel's disciplined lines and coordinated manoeuvres are utterly useless against a creature that seems to vanish into thin air. He reports back to Paris with confident dispatches about the progress of the hunt, but you know the truth. The attacks don't stop. They continue, seemingly mocking the king's efforts. You're a part of one of these large-scale hunts, a massive cordon designed to trap the beast in a large valley. The sun is just rising, casting long shadows across the forest floor. You can hear the shouts of the other hunters and the baying of the dogs as you move through the underbrush. Suddenly you hear a scream, a high, piercing sound that cuts through the morning air. It's not a soldier's scream, it's the cry of a child. All discipline breaks down. The soldiers and hunters scatter, running toward the source of the sound. You are running too, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. You arrive at a small clearing to find a horrifying scene. A young boy, no older than 10, lies on the ground, his small body torn open. He was a shepherd, watching his flock. The beast is gone, vanished as silently as it appeared. The soldiers look around, their faces a mixture of frustration and fear. Their superior firepower and military training are useless. You can see the doubt creeping into Duhamel's eyes. This isn't a wolf, or a bear, or any animal he's ever hunted. It's an ambush predator of unnatural intelligence. The grim reality of the situation hits everyone. They are outmatched. The attacks continue for weeks, and the frustration of the royal hunters grows. The death toll mounts, and the locals, once hopeful, now look at the king's men with a deep-seated resentment. They see their grand, expensive efforts as a failure. You see a hunter, a man who bragged about his prowess, break down in tears after a young woman is killed in the very field he was supposed to be guarding. The mockery of the beast is so complete that it almost feels personal. A quirky or fringe tidbit from this time is the tale of a boy named Jacques Portefeuille. He and a group of friends were tending their cattle when the beast attacked. They managed to fight it off with their pointed staves, a remarkable act of bravery. Jacques even stabbed it in the chest. Later he was brought to Versailles and presented to the king, who gave him 300 livres and an education. He became a minor celebrity. This story was a small ray of hope, a moment of triumph over the monster. But for every Jacques Portefeuille, there were a dozen victims who didn't survive. It was a single, brief moment of success in a sea of failures. This royal hunt, led by Duhamel, and its ultimate failure is a mainstream historical fact. The king's reputation was on the line, and the inability of his best men to stop the attacks was a national embarrassment. The report sent to Paris, once so confident, grew more desperate. Duhamel's men hunted for months, killing hundreds of wolves, but none of them were the monster. The beast was too clever, too fast. It seemed to have a supernatural ability to avoid the largest, most organised hunts. The king, in his gilded palace, finally accepts the terrible truth. His military solution has failed. The problem is far more complex and terrifying than he first imagined. Historians still argue whether Duhamel's methods were simply inadequate, or if the beast's intelligence was genuinely on another level. Perhaps the beast was not acting alone. The attacks often took place at night or in the early morning, and some of the locals reported seeing a human figure with the beast before it ran off. The idea of a human accomplice, someone who could guide the creature or even train it, began to take hold. It was a frightening thought, a step beyond the simple idea of a wild animal, and it only added to the paranoia and distrust that was festering in the region. As the leaves begin to turn and the air grows colder, Duhamel and his men pack up their camp and ride away. They leave behind not a sense of relief, but a deeper, more profound fear. They had tried everything, and they had failed. You stand and watch them go, a small group of disappointed, exhausted men. The sound of their horses' hooves fades into the distance, and the silence of the Gévaudan returns, but it's a silence filled with a deeper dread. The beast is still out there, and now it knows that the best men the king has to offer are no match for it. The hunt is over, but the killing is not. The terror has a new triumphant edge to it now, and you and all the others in the Gévaudan are left to face it alone. The worst, you realise with a sinking feeling, is yet to come. The departure of Captain Duhamel's soldiers leaves a vacuum of hope in the Gévaudan. The silence that follows is not a peaceful one, but a tense, watchful quiet. People begin to huddle together in groups, venturing out only when absolutely necessary. The roads, once bustling with travellers and merchants, are now empty. You hear the stories from the rare few who still pass through. The French army, for all its might, had been humiliated. The king, you learn, is furious. He's tired of the constant reports of failure, of the mockery this single beast is making of his reign. He needs a win. He needs a decisive victory. And so, he sent his last resort, his personal master huntsman, François Antoine. The name itself carries weight. He's not a soldier, but a hunter of the highest order, a man who has spent his life stalking and killing wild animals. When he arrives, you and the other villagers gather to watch. Antoine is a striking figure, a man in his late 60s with a face as weathered as the mountains. He's accompanied by his son, Antoine de Beauterne, and a small select group of skilled huntsmen. Unlike Duhamel's loud, clanking military column, Antoine's group is quiet and professional. They don't set up a large camp in the village square. They move with an economy of motion, a quiet confidence that Duhamel's men never possessed. Antoine's approach is fundamentally different. He scoffs at Duhamel's cordon hunts, calling them a waste of time and energy. He understands that this creature, whatever it is not a simple wolf to be cornered. It's a cunning predator. He spends his first few days doing nothing but studying the land, walking the trails, talking to the local shepherds and farmers, and most importantly examining the bodies of the victims. He's looking for patterns, for habits, for anything that will tell him what this thing is and how it thinks. He has a quiet intensity, a focused gaze that seems to take in everything. He treats the local knowledge with respect, asking you and the others about the strange quirks you've noticed. The beast's apparent preference for certain victims, its uncanny ability to disappear, the terrifying intelligence in its eyes. He has a new strategy. He won't hunt the beast, he'll lure it. He sets up a series of traps and bait, using livestock as decoys, but not in a predictable way. He thinks like the beast, anticipating its next move. For the first time, you feel like you're not just a spectator to this hunt, but a participant. You are part of the landscape, and Antoine is reading it like a book. One evening, you're with a group of hunters helping to set up a new trap when Antoine arrives. He walks around the clearing, his eyes scanning the ground. He points to a series of tracks barely visible. A large animal, but not a wolf, he says, his voice a low, steady rumble. The print is too wide, the claws too splayed. It moves with a heavy gait, but it can turn on a sixpence. He has a meticulous, almost scientific approach that is completely new to you. He knows the difference between the prints of a common wolf, a large dog, and this monstrous creature. This careful, deliberate methodology is a mainstream historical fact, setting Antoine apart from the brute force of Duhamel's military hunt. Antoine's team brings a sense of discipline and professionalism that the previous hunters lacked. They don't drink or carouse. They're quiet and focused. You see them inspecting traps, practicing their aim, and constantly observing their surroundings. They also offer a small, quirky or fringe tidbit of hope. They carry special blessings from the king's own chaplain, small religious tokens they believe will protect them from any supernatural elements of the beast. This blends the professional hunter's pragmatism with the lingering folk beliefs of the time, a nod to the fact that even the most educated men of the 18th century weren't fully divorced from the superstitions of the day. The attacks continue, but they are fewer in number. It's as if the beast, for the first time, is being forced on the defensive. It's no longer the lone terrorizing force, but is now being hunted by a worthy opponent. You and the others in the village begin to feel a new kind of confidence. It's not the wild optimism of before, but a quiet certainty that this man, Antoine, might actually succeed. The thought of him, out there in the same woods that have been a source of so much pain, gives you a small measure of comfort. Historians still argue whether Antoine's success was due to his superior hunting skills, or simply a matter of luck. Some suggest that the beast's habits may have been changing naturally, making it more predictable. But to you, standing in the heart of the Gévaudan, it feels like a battle of wills between two great predators, the beast, a force of nature, and Antoine, a master of his craft. The tension builds with each passing day. The silence is no longer a sound of dread, but a sound of waiting. Antoine's men, over the course of the next few weeks, manage to corner and kill a number of large wolves, but none of them are the beast. They are larger than normal, but they lack the distinct markings and terrifying intelligence of the creature. Antoine, with a steady hand, dismisses each one as a common animal. He knows his quarry, and he will not be fooled. He understands the psychological impact of a false victory, and he will not give the king or the people a reason to relax when the true danger is still out there. One crisp autumn morning, a runner arrives in your village with news. Antoine's son has been wounded in an attack, but the beast has been cornered near the forest of Chazes. You and the others drop your tools and begin to run toward the site, a desperate hope fluttering in your chest. When you arrive, you see Antoine standing over a massive dead animal. It's a wolf, but it is larger than any you have ever seen, a true giant among its kind. Its coat is a strange reddish brown, and its head is massive. It is the size of a small donkey, and it has a long, lean body, just like the descriptions. Antoine, his face grim but satisfied, declares that this is the beast. He has killed it. The news spreads like wildfire. The hunt is over. The terror has finally ended. You look at the body, and for a moment you feel a deep, profound sense of relief. It's over. You feel a wave of exhaustion, the kind that comes after a long, drawn-out battle. You want to believe it. You want to go back to the way things were. But as you look at its eyes, now glazed over in death, you can't shake the feeling that something is still missing. The relief is there, but it's a fragile thing, built on a foundation of doubt. A small, nagging part of you whispers that this wasn't the same creature that you saw a year ago. The head is wrong. The body is different. But you suppress the thought. It's a victory, and you need to believe in it. For the first time in over a year, you can sleep without the weight of the monster's threat hanging over you. The moment you see the massive creature sprawled on the forest floor, a silence falls over the crowd. It is, undeniably, a huge wolf, larger than any you have ever seen in your life, its coat a rusty red-brown, its jaw and paws enormous. Its eyes are lifeless, and a small, almost imperceptible sense of unease creeps into your gut. But the others, they don't see it. They see a miracle. Antoine, the master huntsman, has succeeded where 100 soldiers failed. The royal decree had promised a hero, and here he is, standing over the dead monster. The body of the wolf is loaded onto a wagon and paraded through the villages. You are a part of the procession, and you see the faces of your neighbours, contorted by a year of fear, now transformed by relief. They cheer and weep openly. Antoine is hailed as a saviour. The wolf's head is severed, its massive jaws propped open with a stick, and it is prepared to be sent to Versailles as proof of the victory. The sheer size of it is meant to quell any doubts. The king's huntsman has done his job. Francois Antoine's killing of the large wolf in the Forest of Chazes is a mainstream historical fact. The king, delighted by the news and relieved to be rid of the national embarrassment, ordered the wolf to be stuffed and mounted. He even granted Antoine a substantial pension and declared the beast of Gévaudan dead. The court and the country at large celebrated. The story of the beast was over, or so everyone believed. For a few weeks, a tense, fragile peace descends upon the Gévaudan. The days feel lighter, the air seems to hum with the possibility of a return to normal life. Shepherds begin to lead their flocks into the fields again, and children are allowed to play outside, away from the watchful eyes of their parents. You even venture into the woods to gather firewood, a task you wouldn't have dared undertake just a few months ago. The silence is no longer threatening. It feels like a promise. It feels like the end of a long, terrible dream, but there are whispers. You hear them at the tavern, on the road. Some of the older men, the seasoned hunters who know the land and the animals that inhabit it, look at the stories of Antoine's wolf with suspicion. They point out a quirky or fringe tidbit. The beast was often said to have a tuft of white fur on its chest, a marking that the wolf killed by Antoine did not possess. The wolf was large, yes, but its anatomy was not quite right, its size and proportions not what they remembered seeing in the terrifying glimpses of the true monster. A local farmer even claimed to have seen the beast just a few days before the wolf was killed, and he swore it was a different creature altogether. He was dismissed as a crank, someone who had let the fear get the better of him. This lingering doubt is the most dangerous thing of all. The locals, in their heart of hearts, know that the beast had a strange, almost supernatural cunning. Antoine's wolf, for all its size, was just an animal, caught in a trap and shot. There was no sense of a struggle against an intelligent foe, no epic chase. It felt anticlimactic, a little too easy. The victory felt hollow, and the lack of a proper showdown was disquieting. You can't quite put your finger on it, but the relief you feel is a little too thin, a little too fragile. Historians still argue whether Antoine truly believed he had killed the beast, or if he was simply acting on the king's orders, offering a convenient scapegoat to end the crisis. It's a debate that touches on the nature of politics and power. Was it about stopping the attacks or simply giving the appearance of having stopped them? You, however, have no time for such grand questions. You're just a farmer, a villager, and you're trying to make a living. The false peace is a blessing, and you will not question it. Not yet. You go back to your routines. The sun rises and sets. The world seems to have righted itself. You're so caught up in the relief of a quiet life that you almost forget what true terror feels like. And then it returns. A young boy, just 5 years old, is attacked while playing in a field near the forest. He is found a few hours later, his throat torn open. He is the first victim in months. The news spreads with a speed that rivals the earlier attacks. People run to their homes shouting for their children to come inside. The sense of dread returns, heavier and more terrifying than before. The beast is back, or more accurately, it never left. The false victory was just that. False. The panic that follows is even worse than the first time. The villagers, once full of hope, are now filled with a bitter, defeated fury. Antoine's victory, once a symbol of the king's power, is now a cruel joke. The monster has not only survived, but it has chosen to return with a vengeance, to prove to everyone that it is still the master of this land. The body count begins to rise again, and the attacks are more brutal, more savage, as if the beast is angry at being underestimated. You remember the feeling of cold dread as a child, the first time you heard the stories of the beast. This time, it's a deeper, more profound fear. It is the fear of betrayal, the fear that you were led to believe a lie. You stare out at the fields, at the very place where the child was found, and the world goes back to being a hunting ground. The fragile peace is shattered, and you are left with the cold, hard reality that the monster is still out there, and it is more powerful than ever. The hunt is on again. The great master huntsman is 1,000 miles away, basking in his false glory, and the people of Gévaudan are left alone to face the true terror. The victory was a lie, and the beast is here to remind you of that fact, one victim at a time. The first attack after the false peace is a shock that reverberates through every hamlet and village in the Gévaudan. It's not just the death of a child, it's the death of a hope. The air, which had briefly become lighter, now feels heavy with a renewed and more bitter dread. You see the change in people's faces. The relief is gone, replaced by a sullen fury and a deep gnawing sense of betrayal. The king, his huntsman, the stuffed wolf in Versailles, it all feels like a cruel, elaborate joke played on a terrified people. The beast, it seems, takes a perverse pleasure in this turn of events. Its attacks become more frequent and more savage than ever before. It's as if it's proving a point. It's no mere animal, easily fooled by a decoy. It is a cunning predator, and it will not be defeated by a grand pronouncement or a single lucky shot. The body count begins to climb with a frightening speed. One day, a young boy, the next an elderly woman collecting kindling, then a pair of shepherds. The attacks are no longer limited to the deep forests or isolated pastures. They are happening closer to the villages, sometimes in broad daylight, as if the beast is now flaunting its invincibility. You and the others are forced to retreat into the old ways of fear. Doors are locked at sundown, and children are kept inside. The shepherds now lead their flocks in large armed groups, their faces grim, and their hands never far from their weapons. The constant anxiety is a low-grade fever that never breaks. You spend your nights listening to the wind, imagining every creak and groan of your house is the sound of the monster's footfalls. The fragile illusion of safety is gone, and the reality of the beast's power is more terrifying than ever. This return of the attacks after Antoine's departure is a mainstream historical fact. The king's reputation was in tatters. The official victory had turned into a national embarrassment, a clear sign that the government was out of touch and ineffectual. The people of Gévaudan, now more terrified and resentful than ever, felt completely abandoned. They had faced a monster, and when they were offered a solution, it had turned out to be a lie. The feeling of being betrayed by their own ruler added a new, dangerous dimension to the terror. In this time of renewed panic, a quirky or fringe tidbit emerges, a new theory that the beast is not an animal at all, but a shapeshifter, or loup-garou, a werewolf. People point to the fact that the beast seemed to be able to change its tactics, its size, and even its appearance, as if it was not bound by the rules of nature. They whisper about a dark pact, a deal with the devil, and the idea that some human in the region is responsible for the terror. This belief provides a twisted kind of comfort, as it suggests that the attacks are not random but part of a plan, however evil. It's a way to rationalize the irrational. It's easier to believe in a human monster with a motive than a wild animal that defies all logic. This growing paranoia and the widespread belief in a supernatural cause is something historians still argue whether it was a genuine spiritual conviction or a way for the people to process a trauma that defied rational explanation. Was it truly a werewolf in their minds? Or were they just using the word to describe a beast that acted in ways they couldn't comprehend? For you, the difference is moot. You just know that something is out there, and it's smarter and more terrifying than anything you've ever known. The idea that a man might be controlling it, that he might be watching from the shadows, adds a new layer of fear to the landscape. The news of the renewed attacks eventually reaches Versailles. The king, embarrassed beyond measure, finds himself in a difficult position. He can't simply send Antoine back. It would be an admission of his own failure. He's already declared the beast dead. To admit he was wrong would be a devastating blow to his authority. So he does the only thing he can. He dispatches Antoine's son, Jean-Baptiste François de Beauterne, to the Gévaudan. He's not sent to lead a new royal hunt, but to investigate the renewed attacks. The subtle difference is not lost on the people. He is not here to save them. He's here to confirm the king's account and protect the family's honour. You watch as Jean-Baptiste rides into the village. He is younger than his father, but he has the same quiet, intense demeanour. He is tasked with a near-impossible mission, to prove that the renewed attacks are the work of a different, lesser beast, and not the original one his father killed. It's a preposterous, maddening proposition. The victim's wounds are the same, the sheer brutality is unchanged. But he has his orders, and he follows them diligently. He interviews witnesses, examines tracks, and carefully records every detail. He is a man caught between his duty to the crown and the undeniable truth of the terror all around him. The local men, once eager to help Antoine, now treat his son with a cold suspicion. They know the truth, and they resent this new deception. The attacks continue unabated, and Jean-Baptiste is no more successful than his father. The beast seems to be mocking him too. It's as if it's saying, "You can send another huntsman, you can send the son of the great hero, but you still won't be able to kill me. I am the master here, and I will continue to be until I decide otherwise." The winter of 1765 to 1766 is the worst one yet. The cold is harsh, and the attacks are relentless. People are trapped inside, living in a constant state of fear. The lack of royal support, the bitter sense of being abandoned, makes the terror almost unbearable. The local men try to mount their own hunts, but they are uncoordinated and often end in tragedy, with more men injured or killed. The beast, with its strange, almost intelligent cunning, outmaneuvers them at every turn. You remember the feeling of relief when Antoine's wolf was killed. It felt so good, so final. Now, that memory is a bitter reminder of how naive you were. The beast is a phantom, a ghost in the trees, a monster that cannot be killed. It is a symbol of all that is wrong with the world, a dark stain on the landscape that will never be erased. The false victory was the cruelest part of it all. It gave you hope, only to snatch it away. And now you're back where you started, but with a deeper, more profound sense of despair. The Gévaudan is a land of wolves, and you are not the hunter. You are the hunted. With the king's master huntsman, François Antoine, gone, and his supposed victory a lie, his son, Antoine de Beauterne, is left in the Gévaudan. He is tasked not with a heroic hunt, but with the unenviable job of damage control. His mission, as a representative of the crown, is to prove that these new attacks are not the work of the original beast. It is a futile, maddening exercise. The body count continues to rise, and the victims are killed with the same brutal efficiency. The king's man is no hero, but a bureaucrat of terror, a man caught between the reality of the situation and the necessity of upholding his father's false glory. You and the other villagers watch him with a cold suspicion. He is just another outsider, and his presence does nothing to stop the horror. He's not a hunter like his father. He's a man of protocol and paperwork. He examines the bodies, takes measurements, and records the details of each attack in a meticulous log. He is trying to create a narrative that a new, different wolf is responsible, but the evidence, the gruesome wounds, and the sheer audacity of the creature tell a different story. The beast is relentless. It seems to sense that the hunters are no longer a threat. It becomes even bolder, striking closer to the villages as if to say, "Look at what I can do, even with the king's son watching." This period of relentless, seemingly unstoppable attacks is a mainstream historical fact. The renewed terror, coupled with the political embarrassment of the royal family, made the Gévaudan a national obsession. The king, in his gilded palace in Versailles, was receiving daily reports of the carnage. a constant reminder of his failure. The people of Gévaudan, however, were not concerned with politics. They were fighting for their lives. The local authorities, with no help from the crown, began to organise their own hunting parties, but they were no match for the beast. They were farmers, not trained killers, and the creature was too cunning, too fast, and too intelligent to be caught by a group of frightened men with rusty muskets. A new, terrifying twist emerges from the grim reality of the attacks. A quirky or fringe tidbit from this time is the theory that the beast has a human accomplice. People begin to whisper that someone is training the creature, luring it to certain locations, and even dressing it in some kind of armour to protect it from bullets. The idea takes hold after several attacks where the beast is shot at close range but seems unharmed, as if the musket balls simply ricochet off of it. They begin to look at their neighbours with suspicion. Who would do such a thing? Who would unleash such a monster on their own people? This conspiracy theory, born of desperation and fear, adds a new, horrifying layer to the terror. It's no longer a battle against a wild animal, but a fight against a human evil, a malevolent mind that is directing the carnage. Historians still argue whether the idea of a human accomplice was a result of genuine observations or a manifestation of mass hysteria. Was the beast a hybrid, perhaps a large dog bred for fighting, and was it directed by a handler? Or was it just a way for people to cope with a series of events that defied all logic? For you, the truth is not a matter for scholarly debate. The fear is real. You've heard the stories, and you've seen the way the beast moves, with a purpose that seems to be beyond a simple animal instinct. The idea that someone, perhaps someone you know, is behind this, is a chilling thought that keeps you up at night. The attacks continue, winter turns to spring, and the body count continues to climb. The people of the Gévaudan are at their breaking point. They have no faith in the king, no faith in his huntsmen, and they have lost faith in the very land itself. The forests, the fields, and the roads are all places of danger. The simple act of living has become a terrifying gamble. The beast, the monster, the Bête du Gévaudan, is now more than just a creature. It is a symbol of a breakdown in the social order, a sign that the world is no longer a safe place. One day, you hear a new name being whispered, Jean Chastel. He's a local man, a simple farmer from the village of La Bessère-Sainte-Marie. He's a bit of an outcast, a strange, solitary figure who is known for his eccentric beliefs and his deep, almost spiritual connection to the land. You remember him from a few years ago. He had a feud with one of the local officials and was even thrown in jail for a short time. He is not a hero, not a huntsman, and not a man anyone would look to for salvation. But people are desperate, and they've begun to look for a different kind of solution. You hear that he believes he knows what the beast is, and that he believes he can kill it. His confidence is unsettling, even a little bit arrogant, but at this point, you're willing to listen to anyone. He claims to know the ways of the land, the habits of the creatures within it, and he says that the beast is not a simple animal, but a creation of evil, a kind of diabolical entity that only a man of true faith and local knowledge can defeat. He walks around with a calm determination, a strange, almost serene look on his face. He is not afraid. The young Antoine de Beauterne, now completely out of his depth, continues his futile work. He's a man of science and logic, and the superstitions and local beliefs of the people make no sense to him. He is still trying to prove his father's story, but the truth of the situation is screaming in his face. The beast is still out there, and it is a monster of unparalleled cunning and brutality. He's a man of reason in a land of madness, and his every move is a testament to the failure of the crown. He's a man watching a nightmare unfold, and he is powerless to stop it. The people, tired of official incompetence, begin to put their faith in Jean Chastel. He is one of their own, a man who knows the land and understands the true nature of the evil that has plagued them for so long. He is a long shot, but they have no other options. The hope that had been extinguished by the false victory of Antoine's father begins to flicker to life again, but this time it is not a grand royal hope. It is a simple, desperate hope, born of the bitter knowledge that only one of their own can save them. The stage is set for a final unlikely confrontation between the monster and the man who everyone believes has the key to defeating it. The terror has become a part of the landscape, a grim normalcy. Jean-Baptiste François de Beauterne, the king's representative, is still here, still taking his meticulous notes, still trying to uphold the fiction of his father's victory. But you and the other locals have stopped paying him any mind. He is a ghost, a remnant of a false hope. All eyes are now on a different figure, Jean Chastel. He is not a man of wealth or high standing. He is a local farmer, a man of the land with a reputation for being an oddity. You remember him from a year or two back, a quiet, almost reclusive man who was seen as strange by the villagers. He was known for his solitary walks in the very woods that are now the beast's hunting ground. He's a man who has always been on the fringes, and now, in this moment of collective despair, the fringes are the only place left to look for hope. Jean Chastel is a man of deep, if somewhat unorthodox faith. He carries a calm certainty that unnerves even the most hardened men. He doesn't go on grand, coordinated hunts. He doesn't talk about strategy or traps. He speaks of the beast in spiritual terms, as a creature of divine punishment, a creature that can only be defeated by a man of God. He is a figure of stark contrast to the scientific, rational approach of the royal hunters. He represents a return to the old ways, the folk beliefs and deep-rooted superstitions that were pushed aside in favour of modern warfare and royal decrees. You hear the stories about him, the quirky or fringe tidbits that make him an almost mythical figure in your village. They say he melted down a special silver medallion, one that he had blessed by a priest, to forge a single silver bullet. They say he carries a special prayer book with him, and that he recites incantations to ward off evil. You don't know if these stories are true, but you want to believe them. A rational explanation has failed to stop the beast. Perhaps a spiritual one is the only way. This embrace of the supernatural is a sign of how utterly terrified and hopeless the people have become. They are willing to believe in anything, in anyone, if it means an end to the terror. The attacks continue, but with each new victim, Jean Chastel seems to grow more determined. He doesn't hunt the beast, he waits for it. He walks the land with a patient, almost resigned air, as if he knows that his destiny and the beast's are irrevocably intertwined. He is a hunter who has become the hunted, a man baiting a trap with himself. You see him in the fields, a solitary figure with his rifle, and you feel a mix of respect and fear. Respect for his courage, and fear for what he knows, what he has seen. This turn to a local, seemingly mystical figure is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the profound failure of the French monarchy to address the crisis. The people had lost faith in the government and turned to their own, to a man who, for all his quirks, understood the land and the terror that plagued it. The story of the silver bullet is also a deeply ingrained part of the folklore, a testament to the belief that this was not a normal animal, but a supernatural being that could only be defeated with a sacred object. It's a story that has transcended generations, a timeless narrative of good versus evil. Historians still argue whether Jean Chastel was a cunning opportunist who saw a chance for fame and fortune, or if he was a man of genuine spiritual conviction. His actions and his methods were so different from the organised hunts of the royal forces that it makes it difficult to understand his motives. Was his odd behaviour just a show, or was he truly a man who believed he was on a divine mission? To you, the answers don't matter. What matters is that he is the only one who has managed to put an end to this nightmare, and you, like the others, are clinging to him as a last hope. One day, you hear a rumour that Jean Chastel has had a confrontation with the beast. He was walking in the woods, reciting a prayer, when the beast emerged from the trees. It's a terrifying story, but it has a strange ending. They say the beast just stared at him for a long time, as if it was sizing him up, and then it turned and ran away. Chastel didn't even fire his rifle. He just watched it go, a strange smile on his face. The story makes the rounds in the village, and it cements his reputation as a man of extraordinary power, a man who the beast itself fears. The terror, however, is not over. The attacks continue, but now there is a different kind of feeling in the air. It is not the simple dread of before, but a tense, almost expectant feeling. The beast is still a threat, but now there is a hero, a man who has stared into the face of evil and lived to tell the tale. The conflict has become a personal one, a duel between two figures of mythical proportion. It is no longer a hunt, but a reckoning. The air is thick with anticipation. The summer of 1767 has arrived, and the attacks have been particularly brutal. The beast has killed a woman in a field, and a young boy was found a few miles away, his body savaged beyond recognition. The terror is at its peak. The people have given up all hope in the official hunt. They have no faith in the king, no faith in his son, Antoine de Beauterne. All of their hope is now invested in one man, the man with a silver bullet and a strange quiet certainty. You see him walking in the fields near your village, a solitary figure, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his eyes scanning the horizon. He is the only thing standing between the people of Gévaudan and a complete and utter descent into madness. The end is near. Either the monster will finally be defeated, or the man with the silver bullet will become just another victim. The morning of June 19th, 1767, begins like so many others. A low mist hangs in the air, and the sun is just beginning to burn it away. You are with a large group of men, local farmers and hunters, who have decided to go on one last coordinated hunt. The attacks have been so frequent and so brutal that you can't just sit and wait anymore. The fear has turned into a desperate, furious energy. You're not a soldier, but today you are a hunter, your pitchfork in your hand, your heart a frantic drumbeat against your ribs. The group is led by the local marquis, Jean-Baptiste de la Chassagne, but everyone's eyes are on one man, Jean Chastel. He walks with the group, his musket loaded with the silver bullet. He is a man with a different mission. He is not just here to kill a beast. He is here to fulfill a prophecy, to put an end to a year-long terror. His presence is a comfort, but it is also a reminder of how completely the official hunt has failed. The king's huntsman is still here, a ghost of a man, an observer of a hunt he is no longer a part of. The hunt is tense and quiet. You move through the underbrush, the familiar smells of pine and damp earth now tinged with the scent of fear. The dogs are on edge, their low growls a constant reminder of the danger. You are near the Saône d'Auvers, a high, rugged pasture, a place where the beast has been seen before. You feel a sense of foreboding, a certainty that today will be different. Suddenly the dogs go quiet. An eerie silence falls over the forest, and then you see it. It emerges from the trees, not with a roar, but with a quiet, menacing presence. It is a massive creature, larger than any dog or wolf you have ever seen. Its coat is a strange reddish brown, and a thick tuft of fur hangs from its neck. Its eyes are a malevolent, intelligent amber, and they are fixed on Jean Chastel. The two of them stand there, 100 yards apart, a final confrontation. The beast, the embodiment of a year of terror, and Jean Chastel, a man who has become the symbol of a desperate people's hope. The air crackles with a terrible energy. It's a moment that feels less like a hunt and more like a scene from a Bible story. Jean Chastel calmly raises his musket. He is not shaking. He is not afraid. He is a man who is doing what he believes he was destined to do. The beast, for its part, does not charge. It stands there, as if waiting for a sign, and then slowly it begins to walk toward Chastel. It's an unnerving, deliberate gait, a predator that knows it is the alpha. It gets closer and closer and closer until it is within a few dozen yards, and then Jean Chastel fires. The sound of the musket shot is a sharp, violent crack that shatters the morning silence. The beast lets out a terrible gurgling sound and collapses, its massive body hitting the ground with a sickening thud. And then it is still, a silence. A profound and absolute silence falls over the group. It's a silence of shock, of relief, of disbelief. For a moment no one moves, and then, slowly, the men begin to walk toward the body. You are a part of them, your legs feeling weak, your heart still racing. When you get to the body you see it up close. It is a creature of immense size, a monster of a beast, and its head is massive, its jaw filled with teeth that seem too large for any animal. And there, in the centre of its chest, is a gaping wound. The single shot from Chastel's musket had been enough. The beast is truly dead. The killing of the beast of Gévaudan by Jean Chastel is a mainstream historical fact, the culmination of a year-long reign of terror. It is the end of the story, a final, definitive victory. Chastel's claim that he killed the beast with a silver bullet is a quirky or fringe tidbit that has become one of the most enduring parts of the legend. It ties the story back to the folklore of the werewolf, and it adds a layer of mystery and spiritualism to a moment that was, in reality, a simple kill. Whether he actually used a silver bullet or just a lead one, the belief that he did is what matters to the people. It's a story of a hero who was able to defeat a supernatural monster with a magical object. It's a story that they can believe in. Historians still argue whether Jean Chastel's family had some kind of connection to the beast. Some accounts suggest that the beast was a domesticated hybrid animal that had been trained by a member of the family, and that Jean Chastel simply put an end to the terror that his family had unleashed. The beast's unusual gait, its lack of fear of humans, and its strange markings have all been used as evidence for this theory. Was Jean Chastel a hero, or was he a man who was cleaning up his own family's mess? You, however, do not know these details. You just know that a man, a simple man with a strange reputation, had done what the king's best men could not. The body of the beast is paraded through the villages, and the sense of relief is palpable. People touch the dead monster, a quiet, almost reverent act. They look at the face of the creature that had haunted their every waking moment, and they see a face that is finally irrevocably gone. The terror has ended. The nightmare is over. You and the others celebrate. A raw, emotional celebration that is as much about mourning the dead as it is about celebrating the living. The Gévaudan is no longer a hunting ground. It is once again a home. The end of the story is here, but the questions linger, like a wisp of smoke after a fire. Who was the beast? What was it? And why did it choose to terrorize this particular corner of France for so long? The questions have no answers, and they are left to haunt the people, a quiet echo of a year of terror. The beast is dead, but the mystery is still very much alive. The death of the beast is not a celebration, but a collective exhale. You and the other villagers stand around its body, a monstrous, inert heap of fur and bone, and the silence is more profound than any sound. It is the silence of a long-fought battle, the quiet realization that the nightmare is finally over. For a year and a half, the creature had been an abstract terror, a ghost in the trees. Now it is a physical reality, a thing that can be touched and measured. You and the others run your hands over its coarse fur, over the thick collar of hair around its neck that the legend spoke of. The reality of it is almost too much to bear. It is gone. It is truly gone. The body is loaded onto a cart and taken to the village of Saint-Sébastien, where it is put on public display. People come from all over the Gévaudan, and from as far away as Lyons and even Paris, to see the monster that terrorized a nation. They stare at it with a mix of fear and morbid fascination. A man, a scholar from Paris, tries to sketch it, his face a mask of disbelief. You hear him muttering about its proportions, its massive head, its long, powerful legs. It does not conform to the known anatomy of any wolf. It is a mystery even in death. This collective fascination and the public display of the creature's body is a mainstream historical fact. The event was a national sensation, and people travelled for days to see the corpse of the beast. The display served as a kind of therapy, a way for the people to process their trauma and to believe in their victory. The body was evidence, the final proof that the nightmare was real and that the nightmare was over. It was also a source of endless debate, a tangible object that fueled more questions than it answered. The body is soon sent to Versailles as proof of Jean Chastel's victory. The king, delighted by the news and at the prospect of finally putting the matter to rest, orders that a full investigation be made. He wants to know what this creature was, to classify it, to understand it. However, a strange and unsettling series of events follows. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the official royal investigation into the beast's body was a farce. The accounts of the investigation were vague, and the measurements taken were inconsistent. The king's naturalists and doctors, in their letters, talk about a creature that does not fit into any known category. They describe a body that is a perplexing blend of wolf, dog, and something else entirely. The head, in particular, is described as being unnaturally large and flat. The official report, however, concludes that the beast was merely a large wolf, a convenient and politically expedient conclusion that allows the king to save face and declare the crisis over. Historians still argue whether the royal report was a genuine, if flawed, scientific conclusion, or if it was a deliberate cover-up. Did the king and his court, in their desire to end the national embarrassment, simply choose to ignore the facts in favour of a simpler, more palatable explanation? Was the beast simply a large wolf, or was it something more? You, however, do not know these things. You just know that the official story feels wrong. The beast you saw, the one that stood in front of Jean Chastel, was not a simple wolf. It was a monster, and it was killed by a man with a silver bullet. The official report, with its neat little conclusion, feels like a lie, a different, more unsettling question begins to take hold in the Gévaudan. Who was responsible? Was the beast a creature of nature, or was it a creature created by man? The idea of a human accomplice, of a person who trained and controlled the beast, begins to feel less like a wild theory and more like a terrible possibility. The Chastel family in particular comes under scrutiny. You remember that they were a strange, reclusive bunch, known for their bizarre behaviour. The fact that Jean Chastel, a man from this odd family, was the one who finally killed the beast is just too much of a coincidence for some people. A local priest, a man who's been a constant presence during the terror, gives a sermon a few weeks after the beast's death. He speaks of the need for the community to come together, to heal. But he also speaks of a different kind of healing, a spiritual one. He talks about the need to forgive, and he says that he believes the beast was a form of divine punishment for some unnamed sin. He doesn't name names, but his eyes, when they scan the crowd, seem to linger on the Chastel family, who are sitting in the back. The priest's words, a gentle admonishment, are a chilling reminder that the terror may be over, but the ghosts of the past are still very much alive. The end of the terror brings not a grand celebration, but a quiet, uneasy peace. People go back to their lives, but they are changed. The land is still the same, the forests are still there, but they have been transformed in your mind. They are no longer a source of comfort and life. They are a place of death and memory, a place where a monster once roamed. You know that you will never look at the woods in the same way again. The Gévaudan is a land of legends, and you are a part of the most terrifying one of all. The beast is dead, but the trauma is still very much alive, and it will haunt the people of this region for generations to come. The hunt is over, but the story is not. The summer of 1767 should be a season of relief and healing. The beast is dead, and the terror that plagued the Gévaudan has finally ended. But for you, and for many others, the peace is a fragile thing, a quiet that is constantly threatened by the echoes of the past. The stories, once whispered in fear, are now told as legends, and in the retelling, they take on a life of their own. The beast is no longer just a monster, it is now a myth, a symbol of something dark and unknowable. The official story, the one from Versailles, is a simple, convenient narrative. A massive wolf was responsible for the attacks, and the king's master huntsman, François Antoine, and then the local hero, Jean Chastel, put an end to the menace. But you know the truth is far more complex. The wounds on the victims' bodies, the strange cunning of the beast, its apparent invulnerability to bullets, these things do not fit into the simple narrative of a large wolf. The official conclusion feels like a lie, a comfortable story designed to make the powerful feel better about themselves. This official sanitization of the events is a mainstream historical fact. The French monarchy, desperate to move on from the embarrassment of the Gévaudan affair, did its best to downplay the strangeness of the beast and its attacks. They wanted to close the book on the terror, to re-establish their authority and their competence. But the people of the Gévaudan who lived through the nightmare could not forget so easily. They saw the beast for what it was, a force of nature that defied all logic, a creature of supernatural cunning and cruelty. A quirky or fringe tidbit that begins to circulate is the idea that the beast was a form of hybrid, a cross between a wolf and a powerful breed of fighting dog. You hear this from a few of the more educated men, the ones who had seen the beast's body up close. They point to its massive head, its long, powerful legs, its unusual proportions. They say it has the body of a wolf, but the head and jaws of a mastiff. This theory is a way to bridge the gap between the supernatural stories and the official, if flawed, scientific explanation. It suggests that the beast was not a simple wolf, but a man-made monster, a creation of human cruelty and ambition. It's a terrifying thought, but it fits the evidence better than a simple wolf. Historians still argue whether the beast was a hybrid animal or a normal, albeit large and aggressive wolf. Some scholars point to the accounts of the royal investigation, which described a creature with unusual physical characteristics. Others dismiss these accounts as the result of a panicked and unscientific investigation. But to you, standing in the Gévaudan, the truth feels like a mix of both. The beast was an animal, yes, but it was an animal that had been twisted by something, made into a monster that was not a part of the natural world. The legacy of the beast is not just one of fear and death, it is also one of resilience and community. You see it in the way the villagers have come together, a bond forged in shared trauma. They have learned to rely on each other, to trust in their own strength, and to look at the powerful with a new kind of suspicion. The royal hunts failed, and the king's men were useless. The people of the Gévaudan in the end saved themselves. The local men, led by a local hero, were the ones who put an end to the terror. It is a story that they will tell their children, a tale of courage and of a community's triumph over an unimaginable evil. The stories of the beast also become a warning. They are a reminder of what happens when a community is left to fend for itself, when the powerful are more concerned with their reputation than with the safety of their people. The beast in this new narrative is not just a monster, but a symbol of a corrupt and uncaring system. It is a terrifying cautionary tale. You spend your days back in the fields, your life returning to its old rhythm. But the memories are still there, in the back of your mind. You will never forget the look of terror on the faces of the victims, the desperate cries of the families. You will never forget the quiet, confident way that Jean Chastel walked through the forest, a man with a destiny. And you will never forget the sight of the beast's body, a monstrous heap that was both a triumph and a mystery. The Gévaudan is now a place of pilgrimage. People come from all over France to see the places where the attacks happened, to hear the stories of the terror. They are looking for a piece of the legend, a piece of the truth. But the truth is not a simple thing. It is a complex tapestry of fear, folklore, and historical fact. It is a story that has been told and retold, a story that has changed with each telling, a story that will continue to change for centuries to come. The beast is dead, but its legacy is still very much alive. It lives in the quiet fears of the people, in the legends that are passed down from generation to generation, and in the enduring mystery of its true nature. The story is over, but the questions remain. The summer peace in Gévaudan is a quiet one, a respite from the violence, but it's a peace built on a fragile foundation of unanswered questions. You find yourself, and everyone else, constantly returning to the same central debate. What was the beast? The official story from Versailles, that it was a particularly large and aggressive wolf, is what's accepted by the Parisian elite and those who read the official gazettes. But here, in the land where the terror happened, that explanation feels thin, hollow. It's a tale told by those who didn't live through the nightmare. The fact is, a regular wolf doesn't act like the beast did. A wolf, a wild animal, is instinctively fearful of humans. It avoids confrontation, especially with large groups. But the beast of Gévaudan was different. It attacked people in broad daylight, sometimes with witnesses present, and showed a chilling lack of fear. You recall how it stared down the group of hunters, as if sizing them up before disappearing into the woods without a trace. It was a predator, yes, but its behaviour defied all known animal logic. This behavioural anomaly is a mainstream historical fact that perplexed naturalists and still puzzles historians today. The attacks weren't driven by hunger alone, they were strategic, almost tactical. This behavioural strangeness gives rise to a number of competing theories, the kind you hear whispered in taverns and around hearthfires. One of the most popular, and a quirky or fringe tidbit, is the idea of a wolf-hyena hybrid. People point to the beast's immense size, its long muscular body, and its massive jaws. They argue that it was a creature born of a cruel experiment, a crossbreed that inherited the cunning of a wolf and the brute strength of a hyena. While such a hybrid is biologically impossible in nature, the idea took hold because it provided a rational, albeit fantastical, explanation for the beast's monstrous appearance and unnatural behaviour. It was a way to explain the unexplainable, to put a name to the terror that defied all classification. Another theory, one that you've heard a few times, is that the beast was a mastiff in armour. This theory posits that the creature was not a wild animal at all, but a domesticated dog, a powerful war dog perhaps, that had been trained to kill. The idea gains traction because it would explain why the beast was so fearless, and why musket shots often seemed to have no effect. The rumour is that it was wearing a protective vest, a kind of chainmail that was hidden beneath its fur. The thought of a human being so malevolent as to train a dog to kill people is a horrifying one, but it's a theory that feels more plausible than a mere wolf. It's the kind of cruelty that you know humans are capable of. Historians still argue whether the physical descriptions of the beast were accurate, or if they were the result of mass hysteria and a frightened populace. Was the beast truly a massive, unclassifiable creature, or did fear simply make people exaggerate its size and appearance? The problem, as you know, is that there is no body. The one that was sent to Versailles was reportedly so decomposed by the time it arrived that a proper examination was impossible. The head, which was so distinctive, was also reportedly lost or destroyed. The lack of concrete evidence allows all these theories to exist, to swirl around in the public imagination, each one a testament to the enduring mystery of the creature. The Beast of Gévaudan became a kind of Rorschach test for the French public. To the king, it was a political problem, a temporary stain on his reign that needed to be erased. To the people of Gévaudan, it was a supernatural evil, a monster sent to punish them. To the scholars, it was a biological puzzle, an animal that defied classification. Each group saw what they wanted to see, and each group created a narrative that fit their worldview. For you, however, the answer is simpler and more terrifying. You were there. You saw the way it moved, the chilling intelligence in its eyes. You know it was more than just a large wolf. The official story is a lie, a comfortable fiction that allows people to sleep at night. But you can't sleep. Not really. Every time the wind rustles the trees, you find yourself listening, waiting for a sound that you know you will never hear again, but a sound that you are also afraid to ever hear again. The beast's legacy is not just the memory of its brutality, but also the stories that people tell about it. The legends, the myths, the competing theories, they are the true legacy of the Beast of Gévaudan. They are a testament to the human need to understand the incomprehensible, to put a name and a shape to the things that terrify us the most. The beast is dead, but the questions it raised, the fear it instilled, and the stories it inspired will live on forever. The physical beast is gone, but the mythological beast is just beginning to take shape, and the quiet, uneasy peace is just a temporary reprieve from the haunting questions. The hunt is over, but the debate has only just begun. The quiet of the Gévaudan, now a fragile and temporary thing, is constantly pierced by the sharp edges of memory. The beast is gone, but the ghost of its terror remains, and with it, the unsettling question of its true nature. The official story is that of a wolf, a wild animal, but you, and everyone who lived through the nightmare, know that's not the full story. The creature's behaviour was too strange, its cunning too deliberate. As the months pass and the raw shock of the attacks fades, a new and far more chilling theory takes hold. The beast had a human accomplice. This isn't just a wild idea born of fear. It's a terrifying possibility that explains a number of things that a simple wolf could not. The beast's apparent invulnerability to bullets, its uncanny ability to appear and disappear without a trace, and its preference for certain victims. All these things could be explained by a human master, a person who trained the creature and directed its attacks. The idea of a man, a human monster, controlling a physical one is far more terrifying than a wild animal. A wolf can be hunted and killed, but a human mind is a far more elusive and dangerous foe. This theory of a human accomplice is a mainstream historical fact that has been debated by scholars for centuries. The idea has its roots in the accounts of the victims and witnesses. One of the most famous of these accounts is that of Marie-Jeanne Vallée, the shepherdess who was attacked by the beast and survived. She later claimed that the beast had a large, powerful collar around its neck, a detail that was dismissed by the official report but which lingered in the local folklore. Other accounts describe seeing a man in the distance, a dark figure watching as the beast attacked. While these accounts were often dismissed as the products of fear-addled minds, they provide a terrifying and compelling narrative. This narrative also ties into a quirky or fringe tidbit of the time, the belief in the Chastel family curse. The Chastel family, particularly Jean Chastel, the man who killed the beast, was known for their strange, reclusive nature. They were seen as outcasts, and a number of locals believed them to have a dark secret, a pact with some malevolent force. The idea that the beast was a creature of their making, a hybrid animal that they trained to attack their enemies and instill terror, is a theory that still has traction today. The fact that Jean Chastel was the one to kill the beast, and the fact that he did so with a single, perfectly placed shot, is too convenient for some. It feels like an act of a person cleaning up their own mess, a final, definitive end to a terror that they themselves had created. Historians still argue whether the Chastel family had a connection to the beast. Some point to the family's strange behaviour and their peculiar bond with the land as evidence. They suggest that the Chastels may have been part of a group of smugglers or poachers who used the beast to scare people away from their territory. Others dismiss these theories as mere folklore and prejudice against a reclusive family. They argue that the idea of a human accomplice is a post facto rationalization, a way for people to cope with a natural event that defied all their expectations. But for you, the idea is not a matter of scholarly debate. It is a chilling possibility that lingers in the quiet moments of the day. You remember the strange, serene look on Jean Chastel's face, the unnerving certainty with which he walked through the woods. He didn't hunt the beast, he seemed to know where it was. It felt less like a hunt and more like a prearranged meeting. The whole thing, in hindsight, feels less like a miracle and more like a cold, calculated plan. The theory of a human accomplice also casts a dark shadow on the beast's victims. If the beast was being directed, then the attacks were not random acts of nature, but deliberate acts of human cruelty. The people who died, the children, the women, the old men, they were not just victims of a wild animal, they were victims of a human monster. It's a terrifying thought, a thought that makes the quiet peace of the Gévaudan feel a little less safe, a little more sinister. The beast is dead, but its master may still be out there, and that is a fear that is even more profound. The Gévaudan, once a peaceful land of shepherds and farmers, has been forever changed. The terror in the end was not just about a monster in the woods, it was about the fragility of life, the power of fear, and the darkness that can lurk in the human heart. The beast is a terrifying footnote in history, but its true legacy is the questions it left behind, the theories it spawned, and the deep, unsettling suspicion that the real monster was not the one with the claws and teeth. The story of the beast is over, but the story of its human accomplice, a story that may never be told, is what will continue to haunt the people of this land for generations to come. The quiet of the Gévaudan is a deceitful thing. On the surface, life has returned to a semblance of normal. You are back in your fields and the children are playing in the sun. But beneath the surface, a new terror has taken root. A different kind of fear, one that is not about a beast, but about the very people who live among you. The story of Jean Chastel, the hero with the silver bullet, is a comforting one, a fairy tale with a happy ending. But for you, and for many others, the details just don't add up. The more you think about it, the more you realise that the most terrifying part of the story might not be the monster, but the man who killed it. The Chastel family has always been on the fringes of the community, a strange, reclusive family with a reputation for being odd, even a little bit unhinged. You remember hearing that Antoine, the king's first huntsman, had an altercation with the Chastel family during his hunt. He reportedly arrested Jean Chastel and his son Antoine for their bizarre behaviour, for acting as if they knew more than they were letting on. The pair were eventually released, but the incident lingered in the local memory. It was a strange, quirky tidbit at the time, but now, in hindsight, it feels like a clue. Why would the king's huntsman, a man of such stature, take notice of a few reclusive farmers unless they were a part of the problem? The theory that the Chastel family had a hand in the terror is a mainstream historical fact that has been debated for centuries. The story is a tapestry of circumstantial evidence and folklore. People point to the fact that Jean Chastel, an elderly man, a man who was reportedly a devout Christian, was able to kill a monster that had eluded 100 trained soldiers. They point to the single, perfectly placed shot, a shot that some believe could only have been made by someone who was intimately familiar with the beast, someone who knew its habits and its weaknesses. The fact that the beast was found and killed in the family's own territory, near the woods they frequented, only adds to the suspicion. It feels less like a hunt, and more like a prearranged meeting, a final act in a macabre play. Historians still argue whether Jean Chastel was a hero or an accomplice. Some scholars point to the accounts of the survivors, who described a creature that seemed to have a human handler. They point to the fact that the beast seemed to be able to avoid the large coordinated hunts, as if it was being given a signal to stay away. They suggest that the Chastel family, who were known to be smugglers and poachers, may have been using the beast to scare people away from their territory, to protect their illegal business. The terror in this narrative was a deliberate act, a way for a few greedy men to get richer. The deaths, the suffering, the fear. It was all a part of a cold, calculated plan. For you, the idea is more than just a theory. It's a chilling possibility that feels more and more like the truth. You remember the way the Chastel acted, their strange, secretive ways. You remember the look on Jean Chastel's face, the serene calm that seemed to suggest that he was in control of the situation. It's a terrifying thought, a thought that makes the quiet of the Gévaudan feel a little less safe, a little more sinister. The beast was a monster, but if it had a human master, then the real monster was not the one with the claws and the teeth. The real monster was a man. The story of the Chastels is a story of a hidden darkness. It is a story of a community that was terrorized not by a wild animal, but by one of their own. The peace that has descended upon the Gévaudan is a false one, a quiet that is constantly threatened by the knowledge that the man who saved you from the monster may have been the one who unleashed it in the first place. The beast is dead, but the ghost of its human master still roams the land, a terrifying and elusive figure that will never be caught. The story of the beast is over, but the story of the human complicity, a story that may never be told, is what will continue to haunt the people of this land for generations to come. This new narrative, the one that whispers about a human monster and a family's dark secret, is not a comfortable one. It doesn't have a hero or a happy ending. It is a story of betrayal and of a community that was used as a hunting ground by one of their own. It is a story that you will not tell your children, but you will think about it every time you walk by the Chastel family's home, every time you see a dark figure in the woods. The beast is gone, but the fear of a human monster is here to stay, and it is a fear that is far more profound and far more difficult to defeat. The hunt is over, but the story of the real monster is just beginning. The silence that has settled over the Gévaudan is not a peaceful one. It is a silence filled with whispers and unanswered questions. The beast is dead, its reign of terror over, but the story is not. The most unsettling part of it all is not what you saw, but what you didn't see. The head. The heads, to be more precise. The one from the first beast, the one killed by Antoine, and the one from the second, the one killed by Jean Chastel. Both of them, in their own way, have vanished, and their disappearance has become a mystery that fuels the local folklore. When François Antoine, the king's master huntsman, killed what he claimed was the beast, its head was severed and sent to Versailles as proof of the kill. It was a massive head, an unclassifiable thing, but it was lost on its way to the capital. The official story is that it decomposed on the long journey and was thrown away. But in the local taverns, a different story is told, a quirky or fringe tidbit that suggests a darker truth. People whisper that the head was stolen, that it was taken by someone who did not want the truth of the beast's nature to be revealed. They say it was not a wolf, but a creature so strange and so unsettling that it would have shattered the French court's understanding of the natural world. The loss of the head, in this narrative, was not an accident, but a deliberate act of a cover-up. This loss is a mainstream historical fact. The official account from the time confirms that the head of the first beast did not arrive at Versailles in a condition suitable for exhibition or scientific study. This lack of concrete evidence is what allows the myths to flourish. The missing head becomes a blank canvas for the people's fears and theories. Without the physical proof, without the body to ground the story in reality, the beast becomes a mythical creature, a thing of legend that can be whatever the people want it to be. It is a supernatural monster, a human hybrid, a divine punishment, all these things and more. Historians still argue whether the head was truly lost or if the monarchy, in its haste to put an end to the national embarrassment, simply fabricated the story of its decomposition. Did they not want to show the public what the beast truly was? Was it a dog, a hybrid, or was it something else entirely? The truth is lost to time, but the mystery remains, a quiet question that haunts the history of the beast. And then there is the second head, the one from the beast that Jean Chastel killed. After a long procession through the villages, the head was sent to the local bishop, who in turn sent it to the city of Mende. From there it was meant to be sent to Versailles, but it never arrived. The story, as it is told in the Gévaudan, is that the head was either stolen or that it was simply discarded, a mundane end to a legendary monster. But the people whisper a different story. They say that the head was taken by the Chastel family, who did not want to reveal the beast's true nature. They say that the head was so strange, so grotesque, so unlike anything that had ever been seen, that it would have been proof of their human complicity in the terror. The disappearance of the second head in this narrative is the final, definitive proof of a cover-up. It is the end of the story, and the beginning of a different, more chilling one. You remember the feeling of cold dread when you first heard the stories of the beast, the feeling of being hunted. But now, that fear has been replaced by something else, something quieter and more profound. It is the fear of not knowing, the fear that the truth will never be revealed. You're a part of a story that has no ending, a legend that is constantly changing. The beast is gone, but its ghost remains, a quiet presence in the forests and in the minds of the people. The missing heads, the lost proof, the endless theories, they are the true legacy of the beast of Gévaudan. The silence is not a peaceful one, but a watchful one. People are no longer afraid of a monster in the woods, but they are afraid of the darkness in the human heart. The beast, with its claws and its teeth, was a simple, understandable evil. The real terror, the one that you and the others now live with, is the possibility that the monster was a human, a man who walked among you, and that the only proof of his crime is a missing head. The story of the beast is over, but the story of the missing heads, the story of a crime that will never be solved, is here to stay. And it is a story that is far more terrifying than any monster. The hunt is over, but the mystery is just beginning. The death of the beast and the fragile peace that follows brings with it a new set of challenges for the people of the Gévaudan. The terror may have ended, but its economic impact is a scar that will take generations to heal. The years of fear had crippled the local economy, and the return to normalcy is not a simple or easy process. The beast of Gévaudan had done more than just kill people. It had destroyed a way of life, and the people are left to pick up the pieces of a shattered community. The economy of the Gévaudan, like many rural regions of France, was based on agriculture, and specifically pastoralism. The people were shepherds and farmers, their lives revolving around their flocks of sheep and their herds of cattle. But for over 2 years, the pastures were a hunting ground for a monster. Shepherds refused to take their flocks out of the villages, and those who did so were often killed. The livestock, once a source of income and sustenance, were now a liability, a bait for the monster. The fields, once a source of life, were now a source of dread. The result was a dramatic decrease in agricultural production. The wool trade, a major source of income, came to a grinding halt. The cheese and milk production, a staple of the local economy, plummeted. The people, in their fear, were forced to rely on what they could grow in their small gardens, and even that was a risky endeavour. This economic devastation is a mainstream historical fact. The attacks didn't just create a local terror, they created a regional economic crisis. The French monarchy, for all its power and wealth, was slow to respond. The royal reward of 6,000 livres was a generous sum, but it was a pittance compared to the economic damage that the beast had caused. The people of the Gévaudan were left to fend for themselves, to find a way to survive in a land that had been ravaged by a monster and abandoned by their king. The result was a period of intense poverty and famine. A quirky or fringe tidbit from this time is the rise of a black market for safe goods. The few farmers and traders who were brave enough to venture out and trade with the neighbouring regions were able to sell their goods at exorbitant prices. The fear created a kind of scarcity, and those who were able to exploit it became rich. It was a cruel and cynical market, one that thrived on the fear and desperation of the people. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times there are those who will find a way to profit from the suffering of others. The story of the beast is not just a story of terror, but also a story of greed and exploitation. Historians still argue whether the economic devastation was more a result of the beast's direct actions, or a result of the mass hysteria and fear that prevented people from working. Was the economic crisis caused by the death of the livestock, or was it caused by the people's refusal to go to work? The truth, as you know, is that it was both. The beast was a real threat, but the fear of the beast was an even greater one. The terror, in the end, was a self-fulfilling prophecy. The people, in their fear, stopped working, and the result was a crisis that was as much about the human mind as it was about a wild animal. The end of the terror brings with it a new set of challenges. The people are still impoverished, their flocks are decimated, and their fields are overgrown. The land, once so productive, is now wild and untamed. The first few months after the beast's death are not a time of celebration, but a time of hard work. The people must rebuild their lives, their livelihoods, and their community. They must find a way to restock their flocks, to replant their fields, and to find a way to trade with the outside world. It is a long, slow process, one that is made all the more difficult by the lack of support from the monarchy. The monarchy, for its part, is quick to declare the crisis over and to forget about the Gévaudan. The king is happy to move on, to reassert his authority and to focus on the political matters of the court. The people of the Gévaudan, however, are not so lucky. They are left with the physical and emotional scars of the terror, a quiet reminder of a time when they were abandoned by their rulers. The beast is dead, but its legacy is still very much alive, a constant reminder of a time when they were alone, facing a monster that no one else believed in. The economic impact is not just a footnote in the story of the beast, it is a central part of it. It is the story of a community that was broken and then forced to rebuild itself, a story of resilience and of a quiet defiance against a system that had failed them. The hunt is over, but the rebuilding is just beginning, and it is a battle that will take decades to win. The story of the Beast of Gévaudan is a living thing. It did not die with the creature itself, nor did it end with the shaky peace that followed. Instead, it was absorbed into the rich tapestry of French folklore, transforming from a brutal reality into a terrifying legend. The beast, once a physical monster, became a symbolic one, a creature of myth that changed with each telling, each generation. It became a cautionary tale, a ghost story, a symbol of defiance against a failing monarchy. You see it in the way the children are told stories at night, not to scare them, but to teach them. The beast becomes a stand-in for all the dangers of the world, a boogeyman that is used to enforce rules. Don't stray from the path, or the Beast of Gévaudan will get you. The story of its brutality is softened, its supernatural elements are emphasized, and it is made into a figure of pure evil, a monster that can be defeated by courage and cunning. It is a mainstream historical fact that the story of the beast became an enduring part of French folklore, a staple of ghost stories and children's fables. It's a testament to the power of a story to transcend its own time and place. The beast's place in folklore is also a reflection of the political climate of the time. The story, in its retelling, becomes a critique of the French monarchy. The king, his huntsmen, the grand royal hunt. All of it is cast as a farce, a grand, expensive failure. The real heroes are the people, the local shepherds, the farmers, and most importantly Jean Chastel, a man who represented the common peoples to solve their own problems. The beast, in this narrative, is not just a monster, it is a symbol of a corrupt and uncaring system. Its defeat is not just a victory over a wild animal, but a triumph of the people over a distant, ineffectual government. It is a story of resilience and defiance, a narrative that resonated deeply with a population that was growing more and more disillusioned with the absolute power of the king. A quirky or fringe tidbit of the folklore is the belief that the beast was a loup-garou, a werewolf. This idea, which was present during the time of the attacks, becomes even more powerful in the years after the beast's death. The strange circumstances of its death, the silver bullet, the lost heads, all of it fits into the classic folklore of the werewolf. The beast is no longer a physical animal, but a supernatural one, a cursed human who was turned into a monster. The story becomes a cautionary tale about the dangers of evil and the power of divine retribution. It's a story that is told to enforce moral rules, to warn people against straying from the path of righteousness. It's a way for the people to make sense of a trauma that defies all rational explanation. Historians still argue whether the werewolf folklore surrounding the beast was a pre-existing belief that was applied to the attacks, or if the attacks themselves gave rise to the folklore. Did people believe in werewolves, and when a monster appeared they simply called it one? Or did the monstrous nature of the beast, its strange cunning and its supernatural abilities, lead people to believe that it was a werewolf? The debate is a fascinating one, a chicken and egg situation that speaks to the complex relationship between history, folklore, and collective memory. For you, however, the answer is a little of both. You know what you saw and you know what you heard. The beast was an animal, yes, but it was an animal that acted in ways that were not normal. And in a world that was still filled with superstition and faith, the idea of a supernatural explanation was not just a comforting one, but a logical one. The folklore for you is not a lie. It is a different kind of truth, a truth that is more about the human experience of terror than it is about the physical reality of a dead animal. The beast's legacy in French folklore is a complex and contradictory thing. It is a symbol of both local resilience and supernatural evil. It is a creature of history, but it is also a creature of myth. It is a reminder of a time when the world was a little less certain, when the lines between man and beast, between the natural and the supernatural, were a little more blurred. The story of the beast is a part of who you are, a part of your heritage. It is a story that you will tell your children, and they will tell their children, and so on for generations to come. The beast may be dead, but its legend is just beginning. It is a story that will live on, long after the physical scars of the Gévaudan have faded, and it will continue to haunt and fascinate people for centuries to come. The hunt is over, but the myth is just beginning. The story of the beast is a quiet echo, a haunting melody that plays in the background of your life. The years have passed. The children who lived through the terror are now adults, and the new generation knows the story not as a reality, but as a legend. But for you, the memories are still as sharp as a newly forged blade. The fear is a part of who you are. It is in the way you look at the forests, the way you listen to the night, the way you feel a cold dread when the wind howls. The beast is gone, but it has left a permanent scar on the landscape and on the souls of the people. The story of the Beast of Gévaudan, for all its terror and mystery, has a profound and enduring impact on French culture and history. It's a tale that has been retold in books, plays and films, a testament to its enduring power. It is a story that has transcended its own time and place, becoming a symbol of both the dark, unknown parts of the world and the human spirit's capacity for resilience. The beast, in the end, was more than just a wild animal. It was a mirror, a reflection of the fears and anxieties of a society on the brink of revolution. This enduring fascination is a mainstream historical fact. The story has been the subject of countless books and documentaries, and it continues to be a source of academic debate and popular fascination. The beast has become a symbol of a time when the world was less certain, when the lines between the natural and the supernatural were blurred, and when the king's authority was not an absolute fact, but a fragile thing that could be challenged by a simple monster. The Gévaudan is now a place of pilgrimage for those who are interested in the story, and the local tourism industry has embraced the legend. The beast is no longer a terror, but a source of profit, a transformation that is both a sign of the times and a quiet kind of victory. A quirky or fringe tidbit of the beast legacy is the local tradition of the loup-garou festivals. In some of the villages of the Gévaudan, people still hold festivals to celebrate the defeat of the beast, but they do so in the guise of celebrating a werewolf, a loup-garou. The festivals are a strange mix of historical reenactment and folkloric celebration, and they are a powerful reminder of how deeply the werewolf myth is ingrained in the local culture. It's a way for the people to own their history, to take a terrifying story and turn it into a source of celebration and community. It's a testament to the power of a story to transform and to heal. Historians still argue whether the story of the beast is more of a historical event or a sociological phenomenon. Was the terror a real one caused by a real monster? Or was it a product of a society that was already on edge, a society that was ripe for a collective panic? The debate is a fascinating one, a philosophical question that has no easy answers. The truth, as you know, is that it was both. The beast was real, but the terror was a human creation, a monster that was as much a part of the human mind as it was a part of the physical world. The beast was a terrifying animal, but its true legacy is the story that the people of the Gévaudan told about it, a story that reflected their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. The sun is setting. The last rays of light cast a warm golden glow on the fields and the forests. You're sitting on your porch, a cup of tea in your hand. The air is still, the world is quiet. The only sound is the gentle rustle of the leaves and the quiet hum of a distant fire. You are an old man now, and the terror of the beast is a distant memory. But it is a memory that you will never forget. You have lived through a time of unimaginable fear, and you have seen the best and the worst of humanity. You have seen a king's hubris, a people's resilience and a monster's terror. You have seen a man who was a hero, and a man who may have been a monster. The story of the Beast of Gévaudan is not just a tale about a monster, it is a tale about life itself. It is a story about the fragility of peace, the power of fear, and the enduring human need to find meaning in the incomprehensible. The beast is gone, but its spirit lives on, in the quiet whispers of the wind, in the rustle of the leaves, and in the enduring memory of a quiet, unassuming place that was once a hunting ground for a monster. The story is a part of you, a part of your heritage, and as you sit there, watching the sun set on the Gévaudan, you know that the echoes of the beast will continue to haunt you and your descendants for generations to come. The world is quieting down now. Let the soft hum of your fan fill the room, a gentle rhythm to lull you into sleep. Feel the weight of your day lift, as if a great burden has been taken from your shoulders. The story of the monster is over, but the quiet peace that follows is a promise of a new, brighter day. Let your mind clear and let your body relax as if you are a part of the quiet landscape, at one with the gentle rhythms of the night. Feel the gentle air cool on your skin and let it wash away the worries and the fears. The terror is gone and the peace is here, and you are safe.